whilst instead they've got nothing else to work with. It's all as well, and I think I've just seen the beginning of the end. I rolled the bones, I casted the stones, and all signs pointed to CC victory China. Finally, the prophecy fulfilled, the prince that was promised. Team CC, the first team to ever do it out of China in Tier 2.
This is going to be hard to say. So for the uninitiated, I am a very big fan of Chinese Contenders. Chinese Contenders was always my favorite region of Overwatch Contenders, and I was heartbroken when they discontinued it due to the fact that Overwatch in China was being shut down. Granted, it had a very, very good last year with teams like Flagship Recreators, Souls Victorum, Time Resume, and Hunting Gaming all coming out of the woodworks as extremely good teams after the era of Chinese Contenders being an academy region in 2021. That was the year where we had Billy Gamey, Team Chaser, and Ultra Prime Academy all participating in Chinese Contenders. That was what had happened in 2021. In 2022, all of those teams disbanded, so any players who weren't good enough to be brought into the league had to find new homes. For most of them, they quit Overwatch. They would not compete again. But few, as well as some players from Overwatch League like Milanron and WIA, would find places in Contenders. Big names from Contenders China history like 800, Seawave, Night God, Recall, Akide, Salvation, Cold J. They all found homes in the Chinese Contenders region. They found a place to play, a place to compete. Now, that time is over. Chinese Contenders went away at the end of 2022 because Blizzard. So, going into this year, 2023, any Chinese players or teams left had to fight in other regions. Some, like Rhodes and MDY, would choose the APAC region, one notorious for being fairly weak, and Rhodes proved it by sweeping the entire region, as well as MDY not really struggling with anything either, despite MDY being an overall weak Chinese team with Rhodes having the real superpower. There would be other players as well who would find some homes in Contenders Korea this time. Most notably, you would see Ligue on Dreamers in Korea as the only Chinese player in the region who had a very good place on his team and brought Dreamers into a very good position. But things would slow down shortly after. Coming into the summer series of Asia Pacific, two of the top performing Chinese teams, being MDY and Rhodes, were relegated to the Overwatch League Opens. Instead, we would see Kraken Esports be a top contender, as well as NGU-K, another one of the only teams with Chinese players on it, but they wouldn't find much success. We're kind of just defaulted to one of the best teams remaining by the fact that they were one of the only teams remaining.
It's the classic paradox. You see it in math all the time.
Wait, there it is! Go! They're doing it!
Yeah, they're doing it. But, I mean, this should just be an insta-lose for Chengdu, but it isn't. To force out support.
Bumper's Shadow gets blocked, and Eamon gives him...
These guys are fucking Chad!
How does he do it?
Eamon is giving them the dick.
Okay.
Rhodes, the last truly good team with China in its blood, would manage to sweep through its entire half of the bracket. Again, fully Chinese. Then, moving into the knockouts, they would get promptly removed. This time with an entirely different look. Their recognizable, beloved Chinese players that they had had for so long were gone. No more Prita, snatched up by the Overwatch League. No more Taro Cookie, not playing anymore. Elsa, Kaneki, and Cold J just not playing anymore. They became a almost fully Korean team. Their coaching was changed, everything was changed, and with the middling Korean roster they'd assembled, the most they could ever assemble was one map.
Beat still being held, yeah. Stick is in, and it's a 2-for-1. Leaf gets both supports. It's a forced Ajax. He cannot get the sound barrier across, and Leaf, much like we saw Choice A1 end the map on Circuit Royale, Leaf has done much the same. He picks up 4.
And that is how Chinese Overwatch died. Not with a roar, Not with a bang. Silent. Empty. Slowly drained of what was left. There's still technically a few fully Chinese Overwatch League teams, notably Guangzhou and Hangzhou, but if you haven't noticed, Guangzhou are almost forfeiting their entire chances at the Overwatch League and likely exiting after this. And Hangzhou Spark, chewing through most of their budget, will probably be jumping ship this season as well. Maybe they will stay based on merchandising sales, given the fact that they have a very recognizable logo, but I wouldn't hold my breath. After they're gone, that will be the end of Chinese Overwatch. There's still technically one other player who's very prominent in the league still, in a way. Over on Dreamers, the player Dreamer has publicly stated that if this season isn't good enough for him, he's likely going to retire and go into his mandatory military service. If that happens, then League A, one of the best tank players to never play on an Overwatch League team, except for, one map, he will be the remaining tank for Dreamers, assuming they are still a team. And he will be China's last player in Overwatch, at least in professional play, for now. With Activision Blizzard being purchased by Microsoft, it's looking possibly more and more likely that Overwatch might return to China. And when that happens, it'll be a region cut back. It'll be weaker. It will be set back by a few years now compared to the rest of the regions in the world. America, Korea, even Australia will be ahead of them by then, but with such a big esports population in China, as well as all of these players formerly great, possibly seeking to send themselves into the fray once more, maybe there's hope. Maybe China can come back. Maybe Chinese Overwatch can return.